All right. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Onslaught News Hour with your host, Brad CGZ. We're going to go over more of the few things that are going on right now today. First of all, an update on, some of the backstory, I guess, on the Nick Reiner situation. President Trump just signed something that I think most people will be happy with, not necessarily everyone. That's okay. And we're also going to take a look at something that just happened with HSS, which is really cool. And we're also going to take a look at the Bill of Rights. So, you guys will be so obliged. Make sure you hit that thumbs up. And of course, share this out because it's got a lot of cool stuff going on. Now, first things first, this is the one that I guess could be polarizing. I think most people are in agreement, but again, not everyone's always going to be totally down with this. But for me, I do think this is a really, really good thing. President Trump signed an executive order today to reschedule marijuana from Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3 alongside doctors, cancer patients, veterans, and law enforcement. And here he is. He signed this. Now, it's an executive order basically telling them to expedite this. So this was something that was put forth in 2003, 23, and 24. And pretty much the president at the time, just Joe Biden, never followed up on it. He said it, he made a big announcement of it, and it just never happened. And they basically ignored him. So this is President Trump signing an EO saying basically do this now. So I would imagine it's imminent. He's not one to kind of to back off on these sort of things. So the reason why obviously this is polarizing, a lot of people who are not fans of marijuana, they look at it very much what I think is the propaganda angle, pretty much that it's essentially heroin and it's completely messed up. And to me, I've know a lot of friends over the course of my life who are totally okay. They've smoked marijuana their whole lives and they're totally normal. Actually, I've known people who have drank, who drink a lot, or at least every weekend, and not all of them are normal. And I guess there's probably a small contingency of pot smokers who also aren't necessarily normal per se. But I don't know. It just seems like the kindergarten of drugs. I've seen way more people ruin their lives on alcohol and then especially other things uh, than pot. It just seems it's very, if you just use it normally, I think it'll be very good. I also do think it's medicinal. Now, to be certain, this isn't the legalization of it. Every state where marijuana is illegal is staying illegal. And this is just the basically with the scheduling of it down from a 1 to a 3 is going to allow them to do real research on it. Because Schedule 1 is like heroin and fentanyl and like basically death sentences, horrendous narcotics that like fuck your life up beyond belief, right? So no one's saying like, "Hey, can I get a grant to study heroin and its medicinal purposes?" They're like, "Absolutely not." I'm pretty sure someone needs to look into you for even asking that. But when it's Schedule 3, that's things like Tylenol with codeine and just stuff of that nature, where you still need a prescription for it, but it's considered legitimate medicine that can help. And I agree. There was a study. It wasn't really a study. This was a football player, and I forget his name. I want to say it's good 15, almost 20 years ago now. I was listening to this, and he was talking on New York Talks radio. So that means it was either 1050 ESPN or 660 The Fan. One of those two. I'm listening to it driving home, and what he found is that when he switched to marijuana, it like changed his whole life because a lot of them they throw painkillers at them, and this is what he was saying that the team doctors and they're in pain all the time, right? You're playing football, you're getting banged up. He said basically what they do is they prescribe you painkillers like Percocets and all these things, and they were prescribing him. I don't know if it was Xanax or Prozac or one of these. Probably Xanax, and then he even mentioned other things, basically throwing a whole cacophony of illicit drugs at this guy, right? And he said this happens to all the players, especially with painkillers. And he goes, I just felt like I was in a fog. He goes, and someone suggested to me that maybe if I try marijuana, it might change things. And he said it helped him get off the painkillers, get off the Xanax, get off all these different things. And he said, for the first time in my life, he goes, it was helping with the pain and all these things the same. He goes, I realized what a fog I was in. He goes, I was basically in just a drugged up fog. He goes, I could think straight again. And he was going off because it changed my whole life. And he was looking at it from a sports angle to try and help players who again are getting loaded up on just these meds. And I saw painkillers rip through my whole neighborhood and just destroy it. And who was people were snorting Roxys or Roxasets and going nuts and just ODing. And a lot of them turned to heroin. I guess they must be similar to heroin, or heroin's the natural jump point with that. But that was a trend that I noticed. And again, ODing on heroin, all these people, probably a flurry of 10 to 20 people in my vicinity, not necessarily all good friends, but people that you'd run into in the neighborhood who, hey, did you hear Tommy OD'd the other day? What? Really? Oh, did you hear TJ OD'd? Yeah, he's dead. Like you would just hear these things from time to time. And it was all with this whole influx of just mostly like Roxasets and Oxycontins and Percocets, and just went crazy in my neighborhood. And thankfully that living through that made me realize, whoa, not for me. Right. So it's kind of, I guess, a silver lining in my life that I got to witness such a horrible thing happen over the course of a decade, to know that I should probably stay away from those things. But this is what they do like candy. I broke my leg, my ankle rather, playing disc golf. I don't know, it's irrelevant, but like say anywhere 2011, 2013, somewhere in that region. And I go to this regular clinic and they take a quick thing. They go, yep, you fractured your ankle. And immediately writing me a prescription for Percocets. And I said, okay, thank you. Right. And they gave me crutches and they gave me an air cast. And yeah, so I was able to kind of walk in a walking boot, but it was bad for a while. And with the crutches. And I threw that in the garbage, dude. No thanks on the Percocets. And I mean, for me, I smoked marijuana recreationally at the time. And I just smoked a little marijuana here and there. And again, it was just, I'm not saying that that's the cure all be all, right? But it was better than these drugs. It just, everyone gets addicted to them. So this Schedule 1 is going to allow actual grants for research, professional research that is accepted in making legislature and stuff. Obviously, there's research that is done on these things that is shown that it has medicinal purposes. Personally, I think this is great. Again, I've seen all these drugs and alcohol ruin people's lives. For the most part, I can't think of anyone's ruined their lives on marijuana. And I used to drink a lot in my 20s. I wouldn't say I had a problem, but it was a lot more than normal. Everyone did in my neighborhood. And dude, you're just so much more out of control when you're drunk. And when you're really stoned, you're basically sinking to the couch. It makes you lazy. It does. I'm sorry, people will argue that, but it can make you lazy. It can make you lethargic. There is obviously negative consequences to consistent marijuana use, but it doesn't make you violent. It doesn't make you a problem to society. It doesn't. It's like anything else. There are things that, if you're eating too much, it's going to make you overweight. I know about that all too well. Doing any of these, any number of things over too much, it's going to be bad. But so this, I am very much in favor of. This is the executive order right here, increasing medicinal marijuana, cannabinoid cannabinoidal research. Um, there are receptors in your brain for cannabis, so we're kind of made to be able to handle cannabis. It's kind of crazy. It says Americans deserve access to the best medic- medical treatments and research infrastructure in the world. In 2023, the Food and Drug Administration completed a review of the landscape of medical use of marijuana and found scientific support for its use to treat anorexia related to a medical condition, nausea, vomiting, pain. Dude, these are all the things. Chronic pain affects nearly one in four United States adults and more than one in three United States seniors. And 6 in 10 people who use medical marijuana report doing so to manage pain. 40 states plus the District of Columbia have state or locally sanctioned regulated medical marijuana programs. Yet decades of federal drug control policy have neglected marijuana's medical uses. That oversight has limited the ability of scientists and manufacturers to complete the necessary research on safety and efficacy to inform doctors and patients. So it's going to open up all of that. Now, another thing about marijuana that is just a fact is that there was a push in the early 1900s, right around the same time the Rockefellers were taking over the medicine world, to demonize it. And they watch it. It's like a big joke among anyone who's ever partaked in it. Where, what is it? What's the famous marijuana thing? It's called like, anyway, it was, there were a couple that were just basically straight up propaganda. Like some girl smokes a joint, plays the piano like this, and runs in the water and drowns. It's insane. And they used the newspapers quite famously to really demonize marijuana. And then eventually they did make it illegal. They made it a Schedule 1 drug, which again is like insane. Like marijuana is classified as heroin and coke. It's wild, and fentanyl. And there is could not like I've been around. I grew up in an area with a million people, so you get to see every walk of life. And you see people at the party, and they smoke a joint, and they come back. They're essentially the same freaking person. He is like you can't even tell half the time. I mean, sometimes they'll be a little red-eyed or they're laughing a little more, but it's like this minor change. And then again, some people you can't even tell. Then you see someone who just did dope, and all of a sudden they're in the corner doing this in the middle of a party, right? Or someone who just friggin' did coke and he's bouncing off the walls like a psycho. Right? Like it was classified next to that. And it's just weird to me. So anyway, I think this is a huge win. Here is Trump. He's explaining that it's not legalizing it. Well, actually, this is him signing it first. And then I'm going to play another video. Again, yeah, that's what we're going over. But he also does clarify here that, again, he's not making it legal. It's all the states. It's still up to states' rights to make it legal or not. So people are saying no sound. Oh, is that a thing? Hold on, let me remove this. Let's see. Let me reshare this screen. Aha. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Compelled. I want to emphasize that the order I am about to sign is not the legalization, or it doesn't legalize marijuana in any way, shape, or form, and in no way sanctions its use as a recreational drug. It has nothing to do with it. Just as the prescription painkillers may have legitimate uses, but can also do irreversible damage and never, if you look at some of the damage that can be caused, wreck lives, and if it's abused, it's never safe to use powerful controlled substances in recreational manners, and especially in this case, if you take a look, illegal and unregulated drugs, very, very bad thing. So I've always told my children, don't take drugs, no drinking, no smoking, and just stay away from drugs. I have been, they would look at me and they said, Dad, would you stop saying that? I would say it every time I looked at it practically. Young Americans are especially at risk. So unless a drug is recommended by a doctor for medical reasons, just don't do it. At the same time, the facts compel the federal government to recognize that marijuana can be legitimate in terms of medical applications when carefully administered. In some cases, this may include the use as a substitute for addictive and potentially lethal opioid painkillers. They cause tremendous problems. This can do it in a much lesser way, can make people feel much better that are living through tremendous pain and problems. 40 states and multiple U.S. territories have already recognized the use of medical marijuana. This reclassification order will make it far easier to conduct marijuana-related medical research, allowing us to study benefits, potential dangers, and future treatments. It's going to have a tremendously positive impact, I believe.
Yeah, one thing that Trump does well is he has great advisors, and you can tell he's obviously straight edge. So he's never smoked marijuana, he's never smoked cigarettes, never drank. But yeah, this is a guy who will listen to good advice from people that he trusts. And as far as I'm concerned, it's settled science that it's very medicinal. Again, I told you a story about that football player, and I'd be curious. Maybe after the show, I'll try and look up who that was. Again, I want to say 10 to 15 years ago. It was a while ago. He was speaking out about that, and just the picture of the locker room being kind of saturated with drugs, right? And you go to see the doctor, and he's just throwing painkillers at you and oxycontins and stuff, or even like you said, Xanax and stuff like that, which is supposed to be psych meds. And it just felt sad to me. But so this is, I think, a great step forward, changing the way about things. And you see that Trump's obviously not a fan. He's not a fan of drugs. And yeah, I think that's a good thing. That's how my parents were too when I was growing up. They were just like, you don't do anything. And I think it does a service to the kid, right? And when I was going to rebel, or we'd sneak a beer or maybe a little alcohol or maybe a little marijuana, and it was this big rebellion, right? We weren't allowed to do any of this. Then I think that's a psychological response to the very strong positioning of not doing anything, right? Because obviously my dad didn't drink or do anything. My mom would drink a little bit, and then she later, when we were adults, admitted that they smoked pot when they were kids, and that she did it from time to time when we were adults. I was like, you guys were so strict to us. They did it for us. You know what I mean? it's the psychological way, and this is just my theory, right? But I feel like when you're too honest with your kids, and we're like, well, some drinking ain't bad, and some marijuana ain't bad. Well, then how do they rebel? Every kid has the sense they have to rebel against their parents. So if those things aren't so bad, well, maybe they're going to rebel with coke or just going off the rails with these things, right? And maybe a little heroin or pill, who knows, right? So you kind of like, you're upping the things. So what my parents did, and I think it worked, is even though they didn't really feel like those things were super bad, they pretended to us, and they came down on us really hard about it. Like, you were not allowed to get caught being drunk or stoned in my house, right? Until we moved out. So I think it's a great way to be. And I think it's a great baseline. And then, but this again, I think is an awesome approach, a massive win. And now they got to get off their ass and actually do it. So that's the thing. Because again, this was something that the ball started rolling in 2023, and they basically just ignored it. And so now this is an EO telling them to expedite it and get it done. So we all know how Trump operates. That means this will be getting done. And just like that, he has turned liberals against marijuana.
Hi, everybody. It's Aubrey Adams with Every Brain Matters and Citizens for Safe and Healthy Texas. You can find Every Brain Matters at everybrainmatters.org, and you can find Citizens for Safe and Healthy Texas at safehealthytexas.org. Today, President Trump made one of the biggest mistakes of his career, of his political career. He's incentivizing marijuana and using a lot of excuses of why he is doing that. He admitted today that he's listening to his friends who is claiming that they've had some great miraculous experience, and maybe that's true. I don't know. We definitely want to support any beneficial medicinal parts of marijuana, but I can tell you raw smoked marijuana is not going to qualify for Schedule 3. So I predict that this issue will be tied up in courts, and it will cost the taxpayers a lot of money. And in the meantime, it'll cost the taxpayers, the families of America, a lot of suffering, especially with the young adults. They're the most vulnerable with this drug.
It's kind of crazy with the marijuana stuff. Just again, I am very supportive of everyone's opinions on these things, but they can't possibly know. I don't know. Like, it doesn't even affect people to a certain degree, but teach his own. Everyone's allowed to have their own opinions. It's legal in a lot of states at this point. So obviously you'd be seeing crazy stuff, right? Like in Oregon, where they legalized all drugs or decriminalized all drugs, it turned into a nightmare, and people were doing heroin in the parks and just craziness. And it became such a problem that they actually had to walk it back. Nothing like that has happened, as marijuana has been legal now for over a decade in tons of states. You don't even know. It's like there's some people like, I smell marijuana in the streets. People smoking joints walking down New York City now. It's like, you did it beforehand. like that's like, hello, welcome to New York, bro. But anyway, I personally think that's a cool thing. And so it's that is now going to be a matter of law. And again, nothing is changing. People are like, I can't believe he's doing this. Well, everything legal, not legal is staying exactly the same. The only thing that is happening is they're scheduling it down to a Schedule 3, which means real studies will be able to be done on it. And who knows, maybe they'll come to the same conclusions that you guys did, but now they can actually ramp them up. And so that is a good thing in my mind. Now, next, actually, you know what? Yeah, let me play this first. I think this is what people think. They see people like this and they think of weed, but honestly, this is these people are indicative of the education system. This is the next generation is why what Trump's doing with the Department of Ed and putting education back to the states is definitely really good and necessary.
Do you support ICE?
Fuck no.
Oh hell no, no, I
Fuck
don't.
ICE.
I do
Get
not.
ICE out of Minneapolis right now.
Get ICE out of
Right
Minneapolis. I do not like ICE.
Okay, why is that?
Because they're going above everyone's rights. Like, why do we have ICE here? Like, everyone has a right to be here because the United States is a place where, like, immigrants are people here. Like, it's freedom here, bro.
That's
like,
like,
for real.
U.S. was built on immigration. Like, I mean, everybody deserves to live, I feel like.
Okay, what do you say to the people in comments? ICE is just following the law. Everyone should support them.
I don't support that because ICE is something that no one should support because ICE is something that it's just bad. Like
No clue.
like nothing else. Like I think ICE is something that nothing should support
All right, I changed my mind. Make weed illegal again.
because the United States is built on immigration.
Okay.
I agree. Yeah. I don't really got much to add to that, but
Yeah. And what was the last illegal thing?
You got nothing to add to it because they have no idea. The only reason they don't like ICE is because their Facebook timeline is a whole bunch of probably white liberal women complaining about ICE right now. No clue anything to do with what's going on, what's the legislative, precedent being set by not enforcing our immigration laws, what's happening with them now enforcing our immigration laws, and they have no idea what's going on. All they know is if I want to get laid, I gotta say anti-ICE because the insufferable chick down the block who I'm trying to get with is very anti-ICE. Freaking, oh my God.
And you did.
Illegal thing? Nothing. I guess the last illegal thing I did was like jaywalking, I guess.
I smoked right before I came here. I guess that's legal right now, though. So.
See that? All right. That is a bad case for legalizing marijuana, I gotta tell you. But again, this is the education system right here. These dudes don't know shit about shit, but they are confidently talking about different things at the moment. So that's it's crazy. No one knows what there is. All politics is just what is your Facebook timeline tell you you're allowed to like or not like. It's just a consensus based decision making from people who have no critical thinking skills or desire to look into things. And I gotta admit, at that age, I didn't look into too much. I feel like I looked into a lot more than maybe your average, whatever the 17, 18, 19-year-old. They're talking about legal weed, so maybe 21-year-old. But it's pretty funny, I gotta say. Now, that being said, I do want to now kind of shift gears here to a little bit of the things that have been going on with the Rob Reiner situation, which again is all over the map, tragic, crazy, and tragic on all sides. But there's a new thing that just came out, which I thought was kind of creepy. And then also some parts of his 2000 Comedy Central roast that some interesting comments were definitely made. So we're going to go into both of those in a minute. But first, I do want to tell you guys. First, I definitely want to tell you guys about Rumble Premium. You've probably noticed Rumble is growing fast. It's not slowing down. They're building a real alternative to big tech that puts creatives first, that actually protects free speech. And now there's Rumble Premium, an easy way to upgrade your experience. With Premium, you get ad-free viewing across the platform, no pre-rolls, no interruptions, just the content you came for. I personally have had Rumble Premium for almost 2 years now, I want to say, and it is worth every freaking cent. Premium members also unlock exclusive content like bonus videos, behind-the-scenes drops, and more right from your favorite creators. Right now, Rumble is offering $10 off an annual subscription. Just go to rumble.com/premium and use the promo code studio at checkout. That's rumble.com/premium, promo code studio. No ads, more freedom, and content you actually care about. And that's the deal, man. It definitely, again, go check that out. And I love Rumble Premium, and I love what Rumble is doing. So shout out there, and shout out to everyone who is over here hanging on Rumble with me at rumble.com/BradCGZ. You guys can get me on pretty much any platform at BradCGZ. Even X now, I was able to get the handle BradCGZ. So just think Brad Calogero gets, and you'll be able to find me anywhere. But that being said, now let's go here. Now, this is a stuntman who was on the set of Being Charlie, kind of giving us a little insight into their relationship. I mean, it's obvious that this was a very strained relationship. I can't even imagine. I was really close with my parents. So it's really foreign idea to me to be at such odds with your parents. I'm not saying it was all sunshine and rainbows. We definitely all got into arguments, right? Everyone gets in arguments with everyone they know. It's not a foreign thing. But I never forgot my dad telling us the story when I was a kid time. And he told us a story about this kid in his neighborhood who got into a fist fight with his dad, and how that just messed his head up. It was like, how could you fight your own dad? My grandfather was really tough on my dad. You know, they used to get the cat of nine tails, and they get their asses whooped. I thought I had it bad. It was nothing compared to what they did. But again, my grandfather was a loving, caring man who actually cared about his family. And, you know, that's what they did back in the day. But my dad always told me that, and that freaked me out. And I always remembered, like, man, I couldn't, I could never do that either. And then so you get this stuff like here, and you realize the raising isn't the same as what a lot of us were lucky enough with good parents to get. And I get the more I look into it, so it looks like this kid was, I don't know, possibly neglected a bit. I think that's a rough life, probably to raise a kid. You're not around a lot, and you kind of just throw money at the problem. Or again, they said when he started really getting into drugs in his mid-teens, he was a young kid when it happened, that they just kept sending him to rehab. So it's like, someone else take care of the thing. You know, my dad would have just kicked my ass and be like, don't you ever do drugs in this house again, or I'll kick your ass again. That's the rehab in the Zerbo household. Probably most Sicilian or Irish households that was rehab. And again, we got the don't be doing weed or I'll kick your ass. And yeah. And so that's what it seems like. Again, not to judge too much, but I mean, Rob Reiner was an epic piece of shit. He just was. Again, I'm kind of breaking a moral code that I've had for most of my life, where, you know, you don't speak ill of the dead. Well, especially in the grand window, because love them or hate them, it's tragic. No one should ever dole out death other than God, right? So no condoning of what happened. I do think it's tragic, but I mean, this dude spent the last decade, and not just talking shit on Trump, talking shit on us. Every other post, how Trump supporters and MAGA are the worst pieces of shit on planet Earth. That is just absolutely false. So I'm certainly not mourning his death. I don't condone it. I think it's tragic. But if that's how he is to us and to half the country, well, I could only imagine that, you know, his upbringing with his son was probably fucking weird. There's something was wrong there, obviously. So this is a stuntman who was on the movie set of Being Charlie. Being Charlie is a movie that they made together. His son co-wrote. It was kind of their way, I guess, of healing after all the drug stuff. It's literally the son wrote it about himself and his drug problems and being kicked out of the house and all these things. Obviously, Rob Reiner is the one making it, so he's probably not going to accurately depict himself the way the son wanted to. And then, of course, I'm sure the son, Nick, is projecting himself as like this cool, funny dude. It's probably not necessarily the truth either. So it's kind of hard when two people are making a movie about themselves when the movie is about them being at odds with each other. And it's probably going to be a bit of a mess. And that's what it sounds like. So here's a stunt guy, Eric Audie, who was on that movie, who was offering insight into his relationship. And he said during a recent interview with Page Six that the father and son were, quote, going off on each other while making the 2015 film. He alleged that there was a noticeable tension on set between the pair. Said you could tell Nick was spoiled and Rob was just sick of his shit. And Ode claimed in the article published on Monday, I just assumed, whether this is correct or not, the kid must be pushing all his buttons. He recalled it seemed like Rob couldn't do anything right before critiquing Nick's behavior. He's a Nepo baby, a spoiled kid to the T. The stunt performer continued. Obviously, Rob loved his son because he's doing this movie for his son. And still, his son was unappreciative. Rob and Nick previously admitted during a 2016 appearance on the Two Chairs of the Microphone podcast that there was some tension on them on the set, which starred Carrie Ills and Nick Robinson. Rob directed the movie, a semi-autobiographical story written about Nick and his struggles with addiction and homelessness. Okay, like you were saying. So this is a weird comment to go along with this. It says Ode said that the father-son duo made up with a kiss on the lips after their explosive fight, noting that there was definitely hostility between the two men. It's the family's fight, but they do in the privacy of their own home. Absolutely. He added, people have a way of filtering themselves around other people. They didn't. So it does go on also to say about the fight at Conan O'Brien's Christmas party the night before. One thing that we were talking about in Brian Abbey Live on Tuesday is that Michelle and Barack Obama were supposed to meet up with the Reiners the night he was killed, the very next night. Very freaking weird. They are also tied to the suspicious death of their cook who died behind their house in a paddleboard incident. It's like, who drowns with a paddleboard? Knock on wood. Freaking 5 people a year. So very, very suspicious, very weird. Rob Reiner also, he worked with John Brennan and James Clapper to push forth a very early on, I think it was February of 2018, big Russiagate, a film that they put together, like going through what Russiagate was and all the ins and outs. And again, that's high-end propaganda. At this point, we know now it's propaganda. And so he was help of that, whether he was unwitting or not. I don't think he was unwitting. You know, he made his debut to go over all this stuff right around the same time Hillary was talking about concocting the Russiagate scandal, right? Yeah, towards the end of March is the first time that this is documented to be talked about. He makes his first appearance in May, and then he joins Twitter in June. So it's like right around that same time, all of a sudden you have one of the biggest directors ever is pushing. So there's something weird there. But I want to go back to this. Ode said the father-son duo made up with a kiss on the lips. That's fucking weird. It's weird. I'm sorry. It just, I don't care how close you are. You know, I come from an Italian family. We all kiss on the cheek, right? I do. You know, nice to see you, all family. That to me is normal. Some people even think that's weird, and you know, teach his own. But dude, kissing your own son on the lips, I'm sorry, that's indicative of something else. That's just, I don't know. Something's wrong there. And it brings me to this. This is the Friar Club roast of Rob Reiner in 2000. And I want to play two key parts from it that I don't know. Okay, I think go hand in hand with that. Not 100% sure. I don't want to say necessarily what I think it overtly means, but knowing Hollywood and knowing the weirdness of Hollywood, you guys can put together your own conclusion.
But none of these people are here for you, Rob, but I'm here. When the Friars decided to honor you, Rob, do you know why?
Why? Tell me.
I'll tell you. It's because of your films. Films that make you think. They make you think, what the hell am I doing here? And Rob has always been compared to the great directors, always. When he directed me and all the great cast and Harry and Sally, they compared him to Woody. When he did Misery, they compared it to Brian De Palma and Alfred Hitchcock. And when he began working closely with children, they compared him to Woody. And but what I respect most about Rob is his deep, almost suspicious love for kids, and he freely gives them his time, his money, whatever it takes to get them into the van. But you know, revenge. Do his work for kids. Rob has become a major, wonderful political.
So, okay, that to me, it's a little interesting. It's a roast, and they're all just kidding, and maybe, but again, first of all, he looked really uncomfortable around that time, and then again, Al Franken is also towing this line and making jokes about sodomy with kids.
I just want to say I've been having just a great time. Everybody's been really, really funny. I just don't want people to get the wrong idea that this is not really, Rob's favorite style of humor. What he really enjoys is what I do. Which is far more substantive. But I have to tell you that Rob has devoted himself to seeing the kids from birth to age 3 get the kind of nurturing, intellectual stimulation, love, really, that will make them grow up to be a fully functional, happy person, unlike, say, Brett. And it's a great thing. Most people don't know where this comes from. And Rob doesn't like to talk about it because he's kind of a modest guy. But it comes out of his own personal experience. See, as a baby, Rob was routinely beaten by his father, Carl. Rob believes that this early physical abuse had a profound effect on him as an adult and led to the horrible failure of Ghosts of Mississippi.
You need to go for North on that one. Just curious.
Of Ghosts of Mississippi. Exactly.
I helped them out.
On a typical night, Carl would slip into Rob's bed, roll him over, swab him down, and say something like, "I'm thinking about hiring Maury Amsterdam to play Buddy Sorrell. What do you think?"
So, the whole idea, kind of like he was molested by his father, Carl Reiner, who's also famous. And actually, I think there's even a little bit more right here.
Well, the success of the Dick Van Dyke Show changed things dramatically. Carl started inviting many of his famous friends to son. And that list includes some of the greats in comedy. Paul Lynde. Dom DeLuise. Rip Taylor. Danny Kaye, Charles Nelson Riley, and Rock Hudson, whom I frankly don't think was that funny. Rob, I love you like a brother.
Why was that funny? Like, what's the joke there? Who are these people? Friggin', where's the joke in? His dad used to have people come fuck him. Ha 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 ha. Here's a list of names of them. Like, so I don't know. Anyway, it's all disturbing, and I think you could make a case that maybe there's some sort of connection with this. It's just weird. They made up with a kiss on the lips after their big fight. So these people are sick. Those jokes were sick. Al Franken's another. He's an asshole. Billy Crystal, I do like. I don't know much about him. I don't know. There's someone who ruined Billy Crystal for me in the comments. But it's just crazy. So that's like the theme of some of their joking was around Rob Reiner and pedophilia. Odd. Nick, at the time of that roast, let's see, at the time of the movie, it was roughly like 22. I know because he's about 32 now, and it was 10 years ago. And then that was about 5 years before that. 15 years before that, 22. So Nick's only around 7 years old at the time of that roast. I don't know. The whole thing is just sick and weird. So make of it what you will. There is a little bit. I want to play a little bit of this here. And this is Nick was on a podcast called the Dopey Podcast, and this guy is interviewing the guy who was he's talking about the movie, so it's a little insight into that movie, and he's also interviewing the guy from the Dopey Podcast who had Nick on a few times, and they're just kind of talking about it. But I think it's worth a listen just to get into the mindset of Nick's mindset now.
Yeah. So can you tell me the backstory, how you met him?
Sure. I mean, Dopey really started because I was in love with the Howard Stern show. And I was in my kitchen listening to the Howard Stern show, smoking cigarettes out the window. And Nick Reiner was on with Rob Reiner talking about being Charlie. And I love Rob Reiner. You know, I'm a New York City Jew. I fucking work at Katz's Deli to this day. You know, I'm connected to Rob Reiner. I grew up watching All in the Family. I lived for Stand By Me. I was 12 when Stand By Me came out, about 12-year-olds. And when I heard Nick Reiner on with Rob Reiner talking about his intense addiction and his film and his journey towards recovery, Nick reminded me a lot of Chris, my friend who I started the show with. Both of them had money. Both of them did a lot of really hard drugs when they were young, and had kind of powerful fathers. And I just figured Nick would really fit in on our show. So I said to Chris, we should get this kid to be on our show. Chris reached out to him on Facebook, and he came on the show. And when Nick sat with us, he very much fit in because he was a fucked up drug addict, very newly sober.
Did you run with the high-powered, rich, party Hollywood types?
No.
That was never your thing?
No, because they didn't want to get down like that, you know. They
drink and club and
they
bottles.
drink, you know, stuff some coke and stuff like that. But there's no huge parties. The people that are doing the kind of stuff I was doing, it's, you know, at this point, it's taken so long to get the heroin, and I'm so sober that I'm like, I don't even want to do this at this point, but I'm in so much trouble for leaving the place, for like, I got to kind of already do this. And this was one of the close. He just shoots me up with a full thing, and I mean, it was incredible. But the point of the story is is that the seed of heroin got planted by the first time I was ever in rehab. Yeah. And the person I got it from was a guy that I met in rehab like 3 years down the line.
I mean, how horrible that is, though, for parents. They send their, beloved child off to rehab.
Did your mother blame herself?
Yeah, we always talk about that. Like, I don't think that they should. I really don't think that they should feel that way at all. Like, and it's always a person's choice to do something, I think. It was sort of like, I had done drugs. I had gotten involved in those and that sort of stuff. But like everyone knows that's ever felt anything like drug addiction. They know you can't be forced into a thing like that. Like, and I think that makes the problem worse, honestly. And like, it's not going to say don't,
Well, I mean, I am a very big believer in that. Everyone's responsible for their own decisions. Like, you can't blame other people. Second, you decide to do something, that is your decision. It is interesting. I have friends who have struggled with drugs in the past, and it seems like rehab sometimes, I mean, it works for a lot of people, but it also is, it's a bunch of people who know the ropes, and they can introduce each other into bad things too. It's a lot like jail, from what I understand. I know people who've gone to jail and like pretty much everyone's just teaching each other new schemes for when they get out of jail. So who knows what the answer is? But so that was a little insight there. Him, and then he's going to talk about right here. I believe it's early on. He talks about what it was like on the podcast and basically how he was pretty much lying to the audience.
I think Being Charlie had been out for 6 months. I don't know that he was doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
I knew he was playing pickup basketball on West 4th Street.
I heard that, yeah.
I knew that he was very interested in writing, and I knew that he was interested in having a career in entertainment in some shape or form.
Right. And he wasn't in New York City recovery spheres?
He was probably in therapy. He probably did.
Accurately capturing the magnitude of the strangeness. Do you know the premise of it?
There's a politician who has a kid.
There's like 2 layers
and
of
the
it.
politician is the son of a...
Truly explore either party. Both of them are kind of holding each other hostage in this strange storytelling where, when you look at like I don't know if you've read Permanent Midnight.
I have.
So it's like...
And I had Jerry Stahl on.
Oh, awesome.
He's great.
Yeah. It's very unkind to his family.
Yeah.
And that's part of a artistic, cathartic depiction of a problem.
Breaking away.
Like, but imagine if Permanent Midnight was co-authored with Jerry Stahl's dad.
Right.
Like, it's suddenly you can't be mean. You have to be fair to both parties. And it kind of like would ruin the ability to even tell the story effectively, because it would be this sort of exercise in diplomacy between the generations. It would be totally different. It wouldn't work at all.
It's even more than that, because he wrote it with some dude in rehab, but Rob made it. So it's like even worse than co-writing it. It's like publishing or editing said piece, like with Jerry Stahl, rather than like Jerry Stahl wrote this book in opposition of his family. And if his father was involved, he wouldn't be the co-writer. He'd be the publisher. He'd be the editor. He'd be the gatekeeper for every aspect of the book. Whereas Jerry Stahl needed to have his own personal expression. Rob Reiner says to Nick, I'm going to give you this opportunity, but I'm going to make sure it's in my vision.
Yeah.
Which is what you're saying.
Which ultimately doesn't make the father look bad, because Rob Reiner's not going to make a thinly fictionalized story about his son's struggles with addiction that paints him as a bad character. So ultimately, every character is creepy and unsympathetic. The father character is creepy and unsympathetic. The Nick Reiner character is creepy and unsympathetic. The whole thing is extremely unpleasant to watch, palpably unpleasant. Watching them promote it is also extremely unpleasant to watch, because you have this tension, kind of embarrassment from Nick Reiner, because here it is, he's accomplished something. This is ostensibly his emergence from the darkness of addiction, and yet he's still so explicitly in his father's shadow, sitting next to his father on these talk shows. His father's the charming one. His father's smiling. He's still sullen. He's still in this kind of subservient child. His father's explicitly referring to him as his child repeatedly, which is, of course, from Rob Reiner's perspective, not an insult, but an accurate description. But you can almost feel this embarrassment from Nick Reiner. And the entire thing almost is like torturous to look at.
So you make me not really want to watch this movie.
Oh, well, I wouldn't watch it to like relax and feel good about yourself. I think as a psychologically torturous depiction of this father-son dynamic that is truly unprecedented in its weirdness, that the father is directing the movie and that they're trying to make something constructive. There's this desperation to mine something constructive out of all this suffering, and it's just not there.
Look, Charlie, I know you're angry at me, and you probably don't want to hear this right now, but I do love you. Look, I'm sorry. Every expert with a desk and a diploma told me I had to be tough on you. But every time we sent you away to another one of those programs, I saw you slipping further away from us. And all I could tell myself was, I'd rather have you alive and hating me than dead on the streets.
It was never about the drugs. All I ever wanted was a way to kill the noise. But the more I used,
Am I frozen?
the louder.
I think I was frozen for a second. All right, I thought I had it right here. Basically, this guy tells the story that Nick was on there telling his audience that he was clean, and then he would tell them behind the scenes that he was going to get high right after the interview. So he was not clean. He went on this dopey podcast a few times. Yeah, I'll play a little more just because this is really interesting. I suggest everyone go watch the full interview here, but it's just a little insight into that relationship, which was absolutely toxic.
Best for the movie, which made Nick feel a certain, like what you picked up was definitely being put down. You know what I mean? Like, it's so sad. It's so hard to make sense of at this point of the story, because on Dopey, like, we're doing this at the time very recovery centric version of our show. Nick was talking about after the press junket, he would get high, but the whole press junket, he was saying how he's sober, you know. So he's this, everything that you're describing in terms of the psychological impact of being in your father's shadow, trying to be an emerging artist who breaks away from being in his father's or grandfather's shadow. Like, he's suppressed his whole life. He has this moment, but it's totally provided by Rob. And then after the press junket where he gets to say, I'm sober, he has to get high. It's heartbreaking.
Okay, so I guess I should just let it play 30 more seconds. But yes, that's the spot I was looking for. And again, the whole thing is crazy. Everyone on all sides. Tarballs, definitely weird things about it. He was found just in a gas station, just walking around normal. So I don't know what he's looking to do. I don't know if he's pleading to it yet or not. Again, he's suspicious that the Obamas were about to meet with him. Also, that he was a key figure in the early days of Russiagate and all of that. That whole beginning, straight from the beginning, right when Hillary was running. And all of a sudden, like, as that's coming down, a lot of things are coming down with that. And there's a lot of talk about prosecutions coming out along with the stolen election. and then he's killed by his son. So who knows? Who knows? But the deep state does tie up loose ends. So that's all I'm saying. And it's at very least a possibility that something like that could happen. So with that being said, we're going to move on to something that I think is a little more. We got two more topics here. So if you guys are down to hang out for a little while. The next one, yeah, maybe we'll go into this. So if you guys, maybe first we'll take a second and thank another sponsor, and that would be good old 1776 coffee. But first, Blue Eyes is trying to raid me, and I don't think it worked, but let me go see if I can do it. Go to the old Blue Eyes, who is indeed live, and or maybe it's the other. No, yeah, raid. Or is it raid / No, not that. The second one should have worked that Abby did, but it doesn't seem to be working. So, and then I don't think I can do it because I'm not a mod there. But anyway, it was a noble effort, Abby. We'll figure it out. I'll work on it too over here, so we can start raiding people, raiding all channels. Another great feature that Rumble is doing is raids, and you gotta love it, dude. They're just upping their game over and over since started. I've been a member of Rumble now for 5 years, and it is a beautiful thing, dude, to watch them grow and just kick ass. And now I'm going to tell you guys about a little thing called Misfits Boxing. So get ready, fight fans. On December 20th, the biggest crossover boxing event of the year drops live from Dubai, only on Rumble Premium. It's Misfits Mania, the fight before Christmas, headlined by Andrew Tate stepping into the ring against heavyweight champion Chase Demore for Misfits Boxing's heavyweight title. This isn't just another bout. It's a global event with a stacked undercard and all-out action you can't miss. Tune in exclusively on Rumble Premium and witness drama, power, and one of the most talked about clashes of the year. So mark your calendars, December 20th, because Misfits Mania is about to deliver fireworks. Sign up today. I am a big boxing fan, so I will be watching this. It's Abby and I have been working on a new diet, mostly cutting out sugar, and it was inspired because I was just randomly watching Mike Tyson videos, and it's not even a video about weight loss, but someone asks him, like, what advice would you give someone doing weight loss? And he was like, take berberine and eat seafood. We're like, oh shit. So we kind of like parlayed that into things. So yeah, I am definitely a huge boxing fan, and I will personally be checking that out. That is pretty cool. Now moving forward, we're going to go to the fun topic first, because that was kind of the Rob Reiner stuff is a bit of a head trip, if you ask me. But this is pretty cool. This was for December 15th. So is that 3 days ago? President Trump made December 15th officially Bill of Rights Day. And that is because the Bill of Rights was finally ratified on December 15th, September 1789. 1791. Here we go. December 15, 1791, Virginia became the 10th of 14 states to approve 10 of the 12 amendments, thus giving the Bill of Rights the majority of state ratification necessary to make it legal. Of the two amendments not ratified, the first concerned the population system of representation, and that was basically he wanted to be represented equal. So I think it's kind of going against like senators. And while the second prohibited laws varying the payment of congressional members from taking effect until an election intervened. First of these two amendments was never ratified, while the second was finally ratified more than 200 years later in 1992. That, of course, is not the full story on the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights, there were actually proposed 19. Let's see here. There are actually 19 amendments that were originally proposed. And we're going to talk about some of them right now because it was then whittled down to 17. And then from there, down to the 12. And of the 12, 10 of them wound up passing. So here are the nine amendments that didn't make the final cut. And a couple of them are kind of like spread into the legislature of the ones. So it's like they didn't necessarily get cut. It's just kind of like broadly in the 10 that did make it. One was a new introductory preamble. And this added a declaration before the existing preamble, affirming that all power derives from the people. Government serves their benefit, life, liberty, property, happiness, and the people retain the right to reform or abolish it if needed. Yes, that did not pass. The second one was the protection of rights of conscience. This was inserted early in the text, a broad guarantee that the civil rights of none shall be abridged on account of religious belief or worship, which is pretty much in it anyway. The next one was no state shall violate the equal rights of conscience or the freedom of the press or trial by jury in criminal cases. This aimed to bind states, not just the federal government. It was this is a controversial one. It was dropped. The fourth one was the broadest separation of powers clause, proposed inserting, quote, the powers delegated by the Constitution are appropriated to the departments to which they are respectively distributed, so that the legislative department shall never exercise the powers vested in the executive or judicial, nor the executive exercise the powers vested in the legislative or judicial, nor the judicial exercise the powers vested in the legislative or executive. There was also a protection against monopolies, which eventually there was laws passed against monopolies in the early 1900s. They wanted to add no monopolies shall be granted in commerce or other areas. There were also ones, this is like one of the ones that was kind of amalgamated into it, was it included specific language on grand juries and protection in criminal civil cases that differed or was redundant with what became the Fifth and Seventh Amendments. There was also separate or alternative phrasing for freedoms of speech, press, and assembly that Congress later combined it all into the First Amendment. So that technically did pass. There's also an alternative Second Amendment, which included saying it included exemptions for bearing arms, basically saying that if like you were against it, let's see, the initial wording said the right of the people to keep and bear arms should not be infringed. A well-armed and well-regulated militia being the best security of a free country, but no person religiously scrupulous of bearing arms shall be compelled to render military service in person. So basically like Quakers and people who are against guns and fighting saying they couldn't be compelled to join the militia. So that would have actually went against the draft for a lot of people. There was no draft then, but in the future. And Madison also wanted amendments woven directly into the original text of the Constitution, not as separate additions. So he wanted these just to be woven into the Constitution. Congress rejected that and decided to keep the Constitution inviolate and by itself, plus the amendments. And let's see. And let's see here. So now, what are the amendments? And again, also too, I should mention that the Bill of Rights, written most by James Madison, they do call him the father of the Constitution, and because he was one of the main writers of the Constitution itself, although the Constitution was a collection of minds. We'll go into that in a moment, but first, let's go to the actual Bill of Rights. Okay. One, obviously, freedom of speech, freedom of religion and the press, rights of assembly and petition. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. And the thing with religion was a lot of them were coming from Europe, where Protestants were being very much in certain areas that were predominantly Catholic, were being messed with openly. So they wanted a place where everyone, you could be Catholic, you could be Protestant, you can be anything you want, any type of Christian you want, and you won't be messed with. And then obviously extends to all religions, which, I agree with. The Second Amendment we just went over was short, and basically it was what I just read, except for the exceptions were taken out. Amendment 3, housing of soldiers. No soldiers shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. The Fourth Amendment, this is an amendment that has very much been under attack, especially by the war on drugs. This is the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. No warrants shall issue, but upon provable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. I was saying you need a warrant to go in someone's house. You need a warrant to search them. And again, that is something where in the 80s and 90s, a lot of that kind of started becoming gray areas, because if you're suspected of drugs or anything, they could just pat you down, or they could kick open your door. And there's been a little bit of pushback of that over the years, but the late great Bill Cooper once said it best, in my opinion, where he said the war on drugs is really a war against the Fourth Amendment, and I tend to agree. And again, that doesn't mean I'm like for drugs. I'm very much anti-drug, obviously, but it is undeniable. And we get into some of these. The Fifth Amendment, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury. Deceptive cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put and doubled in jeopardy of life or a limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. So there's a few things in that. Obviously, it has to be due process. You have to be given due process. There's a lot of people who they want the Trump administration to just go gangbusters and start arresting the cabal for grievances against the type of stuff that we know that they have done. But first, they have to be put on trial. Again, I'm expecting charges to be rebrought against Comey soon, and John Brennan looks like he's on deck. And these need to be indictments, and they need to go through the process first, and then you can put them in jail. And that's a good thing. Trust me. People get frustrated, but if it wasn't there, they could just start throwing anyone in for anything. Trump would definitely have been in jail for this time. They had to really go against him, and they weren't able to do it. Some of the people in his cabinet over the years, when he was in, they were able to do it. They tried really hard to put General Flynn in jail, and they weren't able to do that, but they wreaked havoc and basically ruined that man's life for years. So, that's a lot of times the goal as well. But this is why these amendments are very important. Sixth Amendment. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. That's why they will provide you with a counsel if you need one. And of course, this is a jury of your peers, right? This is another famous amendment. But these are the foundations of the United States of America. And obviously, we've seen the judiciary is very corrupt, and that's one way they were able to wreak a lot of havoc. That's a way of getting around a lot of this due process. And that is, those judges are exposing themselves every day. And again, when you get people like Trump in, he was able to insert a lot of presumably honest judges in his first term, and I assume this term as well. The Seventh Amendment and suits a common law where the value and controversy shall exceed $20. The right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in the court of the United States than according to the rules of common law. It's funny. Could you imagine? I would love to see someone do an inflation chart on what $20 was in 1791 versus what it is now. It's like that. $20 is like a serious case back in the late 1700s. The Eighth Amendment, excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. Amen. The Ninth Amendment, the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be constructed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. Okay, so you can't use this against your detainees. The 10th Amendment is the powers not delegated to the United States by Congress, by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively or the people. So the states and the people have the power theoretically, although the government itself has just blown up. And that is a problem in itself. I was showing a chart on Altered State. What was that, last night? Where they've cut 250,000 government jobs. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of government jobs that are necessary. And one example I think is great is, the parks department. And, a lot of these places, like, people picture like the park down the street. And they're like, well, we don't need people to look over that. Well, yeah, you do, believe it or not. Those parks are managed, whether you think they are or not. And there are also, in a lot of areas like where I live now, the parks department is, and these things are very important. There's a lot of wildlife and a lot more management. There's places all over the United States like this where it's not just your local, 1,000 foot by 1,000 foot park in New Jersey, or 500 foot by 500 foot. There are places that have to manage all the wildlife and woods and all stuff. So there are jobs like that. And then also too, like, you're walking in the DMV, you want people to be working there, right? You don't want to sit. I've sat in some long DMV lines, and even ones where they seem pretty staffed, where you're just like, hello, why is this so slow? But can imagine that getting even worse. So there's always going to be a decent amount of government jobs. There could be an argument for privatizing some of these different entities. And who knows, maybe that is the answer in the future. A lot of times, everything government runs just gets bloated and it's totally out of whack and becomes inefficient. So, maybe competing private entities in some of these markets say, hey, come do your DMVing with us. We'll get you in and out. We're friendly. We're not miserable like most people. I don't know what the DMV must be the worst job ever. I gotta say, the DMV here was actually really nice when I walked into it, but in New Jersey, every DMV I've ever walked into was just anger. They're like mad at you. And you walk in there and you're like, hey, I need the form for blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's the blah, blah, blah form. Like, there's 30,000 things to do with all this. I don't know. And that's another thing too, is there's so many laws and rules with registration and all this different stuff, how to get your title and how to get your license. And they make everything so crazy with the paperwork. And then they're mad at you. You don't understand it. But the whole thing is that it's like, you need people working in these areas. Maybe if you just simplified a lot of these processes, you wouldn't need 1,000 employees to figure it out. I don't know. I'm just talking out my ass. But again, we have James Madison. He was known. He was dubbed later on as the father of the Constitution. He himself pushed back against that. And this was a cool read that I found. I'm going to read a little bit of this, and then we'll talk a little bit more about James Madison. And this is set on because now, December 5th, moving forward, due to a proclamation by President Trump, will be known as Bill of Rights Day. And the Bill of Rights, when people cite the Constitution, they're almost always actually citing the Bill of Rights. So, I mean, this is arguably some of the most important parts of the Constitution. Corey Simo on maybe Cressimo says on Rumble, we can go to title places for our driver's licenses much better than DMV. Is that countrywide, Corey? Because anything is better than DMV. But again, I guess actually I gotta say, here in Alaska, it's super nice. I don't know, maybe Anchorage is a big city, maybe it's just a symptom of city, maybe they're not. But where I am in a small town, a lot of the people are very friendly and workable. So that was like the greatest DMV experience I ever had in my life. And one of the many reasons I have fallen in love with Alaska. But that's interesting. Anything to help when going through all the craziness of any sort of government facility, for sure. But James Madison, godfather of the Constitution, I believe he was also the 4th president Let's check this out right here. Yep, the 4th president of the United States. It's funny, like all the founding fathers like literally fought the war, took the country, and then all like took turns being president. It's pretty cool. And Carissimo says this is in Louisiana, New Orleans, West Bank. They can go to title places for a driver's license better than DMV. So there might be other places across the country. Definitely check it out. James Madison, 4th president of the United States. And this was cool. It says several years after the U.S. Constitution was ratified, an admirer of James Madison pinned on him the label Father of the Constitution. Madison promptly disavowed the title, but despite his denial, the moniker stuck. And it has been a cause for debate among historians ever since. So, was Madison the father of the Constitution? Well, not if by father we mean the sole male progenitor, for as Madison himself had shown years earlier in Federalist 38, while most governments were the work of, quote, some individual citizen of preeminent wisdom and approved integrity, the Philadelphia experiment was the result of a select body of citizens from whom common deliberations, more wisdom, as well as more safety might be assumed. Clearly, as both his words and tone convey, Madison preferred the latter course, which is not to say that he was always thrilled at the results of those deliberations. On the contrary, Madison was thwarted on a wide range of minor and not so minor points, including 2 issues: a federal negative veto over the states and proportional representation. That's what we were talking about the proposed amendments that didn't make it in both the House and Congress, that he considered crucial to his dream of a government that would safeguard private rights and still promote public. These setbacks have convinced some historians that Madison's reputation with respect to the Constitution is overblown. Among them is Forrest McDonald, who in a book, Novus Ordo Seclorum, takes up the failures Madison suffered at the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. Overall, of the 71 specific proposals that Madison moved, seconded, or spoke unequivocally in regard to, he writes, he was on the losing side 40 times. The myth that Madison was the father of the Constitution dies hard. Well, that's neither here nor there, but he was the main one of the main people, and I think this next part tells that story pretty well. So there are bookworms, and then there are bookworms, and it isn't every student who can plow through the strengths and weaknesses of the Aphocentic Confederacy of early 16th Greece. Actually, let me read this first. Okay. More important is what resulted from Madison's prodigious preparation for these conventions. Okay. This is how he prepared for these conventions. In the spring and summer of 86, in what may have been the greatest one-man skull session in history, Madison retired to his study in his beloved home, Montpelier, armed with a number of books that he had collected, many sent from Paris from his friend Tom Jefferson, dealing with governments of the past. From these books on ancient republics, Madison hoped he would learn what made governments work or prevented them from working. The result was a document titled Notes on Ancient and Modern Confederacies. And these included the Afrocentric Confederacy of the early 16th century Greece, the Helvetic Confederacy of 14th century Switzerland, and the Belgic and Germanic confederacies of the mid 1600s. Madison did, and in his notes, he made lists of all the features of those governments, good and bad, but particularly the bad, such as disparity of size in cantons, intolerance of religion, and weakness of the union, to name a few. So this guy just went home and absolutely consumed all these different republics and was trying to go into it to figure out what to do. Now, this is something that he speaks of in the Federalist Papers, and I thought it could be good to read Federalist Paper number 10. This seems parts of it actually seem relevant to right now, but in general, this is kind of him talking about the idea of what the republic, what are we creating here, and it just goes to show that a lot of thought, a lot of back and forth, especially when you read the Federalist Papers, really went into this country. It wasn't just a bunch of cowboys who took a country and were like, wow, we own it now. This is what you see a lot of the rebellions, especially in like Central and South America, and they kind of take it over and then they're just a dictator, or there's not a lot of thought in what to do now. These people were well read, they were good people, and they put the time and effort in to make sure that we had a solid foundation for the United States of America. So this is Federalist Paper number 10 by James Madison. Among the numerous advantages promised by a well-constructed union, none deserves to be more accurately developed than its tendency to break and control the violence of faction. This is a big theme throughout this paper, is different factions of people, realizing that there are going to be numerous factions of people in this new country. The friend of popular governments never finds himself so much alarmed for their character and fate as when he contemplates their propensity to this dangerous vice. He will not fail, therefore, to set a due value on any plan which, without violating the principles to which he is attached, provides a proper cure for it. The instability, injustice, and confusion introduced into the public councils have, in truth, been the mortal diseases under which popular governments have everywhere perished. As they continue to be the favorite and fruitful topics from which the adversaries to liberty derive their most specious declamations. And then again, he was studying the different ways and republics and just systems of government in the 1600s is within the 100 years, right? And then he was also looking at a lot more than just that. The valuable improvements made by the American constitutions on the popular models, both ancient and modern, cannot certainly be too much admired. But it would be an unwarrantable partiality to contend that they have as effectively obviated the danger on this side as we wished and expected. Complaints are everywhere where heard from our most considerate and virtuous citizens, equally the friends of public and private faith, and of public and personal liberty, that our governments are too unstable, that the public good is disregarded in the conflicts of rival parties, and that measures are too often decided not according to the rules of justice and the rights of the minor party, but by the superior force of an interested and overbearing majority. And this is the problem with democracies, right? However, anxiously, we may wish that these complaints had no foundation. The evidence of known facts will not permit us to deny that they are in some degree true. It will be found, indeed, on a candid review of our situation, that some of the distresses under which we labor have been erroneously charged on the operation of our governments. But it will be found at the same time that other causes will not alone account for many of our heaviest misfortunes, and particularly for that prevailing and increasing distrust of public engagements and alarm for private rights, which are echoed from one end of the continent to the other. These must be chiefly, if not wholly, effects on the unsteadiness and injustice with which a factious spirit tainted our public administrations. By a faction, I understand a number of citizens, whether amounting to a majority or minority of the whole, who are united and actuated by some common impulse of passion or of interest, adverse to the rights of their citizens or to the permanent and aggregate interests of the community. There are two methods of curing the mischiefs of faction. The one, by removing its causes, the other by controlling its effects. So basically, he's talking about people who are into things that are hurting either themselves or that the majority are against. And this is saying that everyone are basically, the point he's making a lot here, and it's going to make it a little more as we go on, is that people have vices and everyone has different vices, and they're not all compatible with society. They're not all compatible with everything. And I think this goes a lot to the idea of a republic, that as long as you're not hurting anyone, the 99 can't take away the rights of the one. And he goes, there are again two methods of removing the causes of faction. The one, by destroying the liberty, which is essential to his existence. The other, by giving to every citizen the same opinions, the same passions, and the same interests. And this is kind of what our media and the propaganda machine has tried to do, right? The propaganda machine is going exactly against what they were trying to do with this. It can never be more truly said that than of the first remedy, that it is worse than the disease. Liberty is to faction what air is to fire, an ailment. Without it, it instantly expires, right? Without air, fire fully expires. But it could not be less folly to abolish liberty, which is essential to political life because it nourishes faction, than it would be to wish the annihilation of air, which is essential to animal life, because it imparts to fire its destructive agency. So saying like taking away liberty it would stop the people doing the things you don't like from doing them, but it would also stop a whole bunch of good things. So saying like, oh, I don't like fire, so I'm going to outlaw air, but then everything else would die. So it's kind of, I like that. It says saying that you don't want to have these blanket disruptions. This kind of goes along with what they did to marijuana. Ironically, what they're doing now, where they're going to open it up for testing and reschedule it as Schedule 3. And not everyone likes it, and that's totally okay. And not everyone has to do it or be down with it. But this is to completely take that liberty or that right, that freedom away is a symptom of a much worse problem, if that makes sense. The second way expedient is as impracticable as the first would be unwise. As long as the reason of man continues fallible and he is at liberty to exercise it, different opinions will be formed. As long as the connection subsists between his reason and his self-love, his opinions and his passion will have a reciprocal influence on each other, and the former will be objects to which the latter will attach themselves. The diversity in the faculties of men from which the rights of property originate is not less an unsuperable obstacle to an ununiformity of interest. The protection of these faculties is the first object of government. So it's basically the protection of people being able to be themselves is the first, he's saying, is the first object of government. And I agree with that. Government is supposed to not not even out the playing field. It's just supposed to provide a fair playing field. From the protection of different and unequal faculties of acquiring property, possession of different degrees and kinds of property immediately results, and from the influence of these on the sentiments and the views of the respective proprietors ensues a division of the society into different interests and parties. The latent causes of faction are thus sown in the nature of man, and we must see them everywhere brought into different degrees of activity according to the different circumstances of civil society. A zeal for different opinions concerning religion, concerning government, and many other points, as well of speculation of practice, an attachment to different leaders, ambitiously contending for preeminence and power, or to persons of other descriptions whose fortunes have been interesting to the human passions, have in turn divided mankind into parties, inflamed them with mutual animosity, and rendered them much more disposed to vex and oppress each other than to cooperate for the common good. I like that. I'm going to say it again. Is disposed to vex and oppress each other more than cooperate for the common good. Okay, that's typically these differences cause strife when they don't have to if you have an actual free nation. So strong is this propensity of mankind to fall into mutual animosities that where no substantial occasion presents itself, the most frivolous and fanciful distinctions have been sufficient to kindle their unfriendly passions and excite their most violent conflicts. And we are a victim of people who do exactly this all the time. This is exactly how the Soros networks work. They are exploiting these concepts that were understood very well by our founding fathers. But the most common and durable source of factions has been the various and unequal distribution of property. Those who hold and those who are without property have ever formed distinct interests into society. Those who are creditors and those who are debtors fall under like discrimination. A landed interest, a manufactured interest, a mercantile interest, a moneyed interest with many lesser interests grow up of necessity in civilized nations and divide them into different classes, actuated by different sentiments and views. The regulation of these various and interfering interests forms the principal task of modern legislation and involves the spirit of party and faction in the necessary and ordinary operations of government. No man is allowed to be a judge in his own cause, because his interest would certainly bias his judgment and, not improbably, corrupt his integrity. With equal, nay, with greater reason, a body of men are unfit to be both judges and parties at the same time. Yet, what are many of the most important acts of legislation? But so many judicial determinations, not indeed concerning the rights of single persons, but concerning the rights of larger bodies of citizens. And what are the different classes of legislators, but advocates and parties to the causes which they determine? Is a law proposed concerning private debts? Is it a question to which the creditors are parties on one side and the debtors are on the other? Justice ought to hold the balance between them. Yet the parties are and must be themselves the judges, and the most numerous party, or in other words, the most powerful faction, must be expected to prevail. Shall dominance manufacturers be encouraged, and in what degree by restrictions on foreign manufacturers? Are questions which would be differently decided by the landed and the manufacturing classes, and probably by neither with sole regard to justice and the public good. The apportionment of taxes on the various descriptions of property is an act which seems to require the most exact impartiality. Yet there is perhaps no legislative act in which greater opportunity and temptation. This is great. I'm going to start this sentence again because this is about taxes, and taxes are a major thing that has just totally ruined this country. Yes, by the way, this is really live. I did move to Alaska, and it is only 11 p.m. here, so it is 3:19 in back home in New York and New Jersey, and yeah, midnight Pacific time. So I'm gonna read this again. The apportionment of taxes on the various descriptions of property is an act which seems to require the most exact impartiality. Yet there is perhaps no legislative act in which greater opportunity and temptation are given to a predominant party to trample on the rules of justice. Every shilling with which they overburden the inferior number is a shilling saved to their own pockets. So it's interesting. Our tax dollars pay Congress, and they're the ones deciding tax laws, right? But like President Wilson, is the one who signed the 16th Amendment into law. It's part of the reason why I see him to be the worst president in American history. We can maybe talk about that in a second, but I've talked about it a lot in different ways. I just think he is the absolute worst. Joe Biden idolized him, which big shocker. And he really set the foundation for the New World Order. Madison continues here. And again, I'm reading this because I just feel like this is really important. Federalist Paper 10. It is in vain to say that enlightened statesmen will be able to adjust these clashing interests and render them all subservient to the public good. Enlightened statesmen will not always be at the helm, nor in many cases can such an adjustment be made at all, without taking into view indirect and remote considerations, which will rarely prevail over the immediate interests which one party may find in disregarding the rights of another, or the good of the whole. The inference to which we are brought is that the causes of faction cannot be removed, and that the relief is only to be sought in the means of controlling its effects. So he's saying the causes of faction, you don't want to take away the liberty. It ensues that people will retain their individuality. It will also keep different groups. And basically the point in making, as you get to the end of this, is that alone should keep our country well off. And that you want kind of different factions. When you start getting this one autonomous groupthink, it's actually when dangerous things can start happening. And it's like a push and pull. And I'll read the end of this last page here. There's a couple more pages, but just this last page is a really important thing that's coming up. It says, if a faction consists of less than a majority, relief is supplied by the Republican principle, which enables the majority to defeat its sinister views by regular vote. It may clog the administration and may convulse the society, but it will be unable to execute and mask its violence under the forms of the Constitution. When a majority is included in a faction, the form of popular government, on the other hand, enables it to sacrifice to its ruling passion or interest both the public good and the rights of other citizens. It's very important here. To secure the public good and private rights against the danger of such a faction, and at the same time preserve the spirit and the form of popular government, is then the great object to which our inquiries are directed. It's one of the great things that they're trying to stop, is a majority population using that to subvert the minority of viewpoints in any viewpoint. It says, let me add, that is the great desideratum by which alone this form of government can be rescued from the opprobrium under which it has so long labored, and be recommended to the esteem and adoption of mankind. By what means is this object attainable? Evidently by one of two only, either the existence of the same passion or interest in a majority at the same time must be prevented, or the majority, having such coexistent passion or interest, must be rendered by their number and local situation unable to concert and carry into effect schemes of oppression. If the impulse and the opportunity be suffered to coincide, we well know that neither moral nor religious motives can be relied on as an adequate control. They are not found to be such on the injustice and violence of individuals, and lose their efficacy in proportion to the number combined together. That is, in proportion as their efficacy becomes needful. So these are great. I suggest everyone read the Federalist Papers. It's quite insightful to how the United States was founded. They're very, very massive. And there's plenty of oppression. There's oppression going on right now against white people, against white males. It's wild because every mainstream media outlet would suggest the exact opposite is happening. And that is about as sinister as it gets, in my personal opinion. But people are starting to push back on that. And it's about time. A lot of people have been speaking out about this for a long time, and this is good to see. One of the people who just shared a really fascinating piece on this sort of craziness that we've been seeing is one Vice President Vance. I'll share this here. And he goes, a lot of people think DEI is lame diversity seminars or racial slogans at NFL games. In reality, it was a deliberate program of discrimination primarily against white men. This is an incredible piece that describes the evil of DEI and its consequences, the lost generation. And I agree that that is a great piece. I have a breakdown here, and we can definitely talk about it. I do want to say before we get into that let's see here. But I want to tell you guys about soft disclosure. You guys should know about it by now. And this is a great product. They have different creams and all different beauty products. And they are sponsoring this channel. Well, you guys can help sponsor this channel where I will be able to, if any of you guys use my promo code, then they will help me out. So you guys, there's a link in the description for soft disclosure. If you use promo code BRAD, you'll get 10% off your orders. And again, anything you buy with that promo code definitely helps me out and is much appreciated. And I also want to tell you guys about something else here really quick. And look, if you're still scrambling for a Christmas gift, this is something you do need to hear. Our friends at Chicago State Company extended free shipping for Christmas delivery, but their warehouse just told us that they're down to the last few slots. mychicagosteak.com/rumble, code rumble. Gift your loved ones the top 2% of beef in America, USDA prime and premium Angus, hand cut by master butchers, marbling so good when it hits the hot pan, the whole house fills with the sound and smell of buttery meat goodness. It's the call to the kitchen for everyone. If you spend $229, they'll throw in 6 free ribeyes plus free shipping. $240 of premium steak on the house. Damn, that's a freaking great deal. Your gift shows up in a black and gold box packed with dry rice. They crack it open, vapor rolls out, instant Christmas morning vibes. Give them something they'll ask for next year. So don't wait on this. The warehouse is on the line. mychicagosteak.com/rumble, code rumble, RUMBLE. It's mychicagosteak.com/rumble. A great deal. Definitely check that out, guys. And with that being said, we're going to move on to this next part that I wanted to talk about. Again, that is what Vice President Vance is sharing here. And this is quite the article. The Lost Generation, Jacob Savage. It says, for 15 years, I've scalped tickets to pay the bills. But in January 2016, I almost managed a real career. I was 31. I'd been in Los Angeles for 5 years writing scripts. There had been minor successes, a couple of small projects optioned, and I'd recently started writing with my best friend. We were writing constantly, making each other better, building momentum. Success felt close. Back then, it always did. We'd written a pilot script that a veteran showrunner had agreed in a very theoretical, very Hollywood sort of way to come on to. That project had fizzled. So we were surprised when an executive emailed us out of the blue to meet. Showrunner explained he submitted us up for upcoming writer's room. He was going to run. The exec had loved our pilot and wanted to hire us. This was it. The moment of our careers we were supposed to take off. We'd put in our time. I'd been tutoring SATs and reselling tickets to make ends meet while I wrote, and 5 years seemed par for the course based on the slightly older guys we knew had made it. Of course, by 2016, we were way too late. The showrunner emailed us back apologetically, quote, I had initially thought I might be able to bring you guys on, he wrote, but in the end, it wasn't possible. We met with an executive anyway, a Gen X white guy, who told us how much he loved our pilot. But the writer's room was small, he explained apologetically, and the higher levels writers were all white men. They couldn't have an all-white male room. Why not? Maybe if the show got another season, they'd be able to bring us on. They never did. Like what is that? Imagine telling someone you're not getting the job. We love what you're doing. We just can't bring you on because we just can't have all white men. That is racist. This is in a meritocracy. It shouldn't matter. And also, how are white people just completely all grouped in? Now, if you went to that writer's room, who's Irish, who's Italian, who's Scandinavian, who's Slavic? There are all different types of white people coming from all different types of ethnic backgrounds. And this is oppression. This is what the type of stuff our founding fathers wrote against, who worked against when they were writing the Constitution. The doors seemed to close everywhere and all at once. In 2011, a year I moved to Los Angeles, white men were 48% of the lower level TV writers. And, white men, that's underrepresentation already, 48%. If you look at the diversity breakdowns of the United States, by 2024, they accounted for just 11.9%. The Atlantic's editorial staff went from 53% male and 89% white in 2013 to 36% male and 66% white in 2024. White men fell from 39% of tenure track positions in humanities at Harvard in 2014 to 18% in 2023. In retrospect, 2014 was the hinge, the year DEI became institutionalized across American life. And this was the second year of Obama's second term. And again, President Obama did more to hurt race relations and ramp up the anti-white psyop that had been thrust upon this country than anyone else. I mean, it's criminal what that man was able to accomplish while he was in office. In industry after industry, gatekeepers promised extra consideration to anyone who wasn't a white man, and then provided just that. With every announcement of promotions, there was a desire to put extra emphasis on gender or race. A former management consultant recalled, and when you don't fall into these groups, that message gets louder and louder, and gains get more and more emphasis. On the other hand, you want to celebrate people who have been at a disadvantage. On the other hand, you look and you say, wow, the world is not rooting for you. In fact, it's deliberately rooting against you. So there's always different trains of thought, right, when it comes to all this stuff. And I'm going to go to a cool breakdown of this. But you guys, I urge you to go to Vice President Vance's, and I shared it too, and peruse this for yourself because it's a fascinating read. And again, we're going to play a breakdown of this. And it is great. This is something I've talked about for a while, is the attack on white people. There's just a blatant racist attack on white people in this country. Even if you're not white, could happen to you the next moment of the next day. So it's something that should concern everyone, especially with left-wing politics dominating Hollywood and dominating the music industry, and they're just completely saturating the news market because this is what they do. They terrorize the black communities for the 1800s, most of the 1900s, until this Civil War movement, civil rights movement in the 60s was too large to ignore. And then they flipped it. And then from the 60s on, they start slowly but surely going against white people until the point now where the last 20 years, they've been just straight out openly terrorizing white people. And so it's what they do. And when this is done, they'll move on to Asians, or maybe their next target will be Hispanics, but they don't have real policies. They just terrorize and race bait. It's been going on for hundreds of years. This is why it concerns everyone, what's been going on here. So I'm going to play this breakdown, which I thought was really great. I presume this is by the American Renaissance doing this, and it gets into the article.
Yes, white men get the short end of the stick, and an article this week has the numbers to prove it. In The Lost Generation, Jacob Savage writes about the countless white men who tried to get a start in prestige professions but were kicked in the teeth in the name of diversity. There have been anti-white race preferences since the 1960s, but he picks 2014 as the year the doors slammed shut. If you were 40 that year, you were already a success if you were ever going to be. But if you were 30 in 2014, your chances were close to zero. 2014 was the year of Oscars So White. Only white people were nominated for acting awards, and the word went out to Hollywood talent agencies. Want female and diverse, emphasis on African American. As Mr. Savage writes, this was systematic discrimination, documented in writing, implemented without consequence. It's striking how casual it all was. The author writes that in 2011, when he moved to Los Angeles to be a screenwriter, 48% of the lower-level TV writers were white men. 13 years later, it was just 11.9%. It was the same in print media. In 9 years, from 2013 to 2022, the staff at Vox went from 82% men to just 37%. Whites dropped from 88% to 59%. This year, 73% of the editors are women. In 2020, the psychotic racial reckoning after George Floyd went to his reward made everything worse. Since then, nearly 2/3 of the Atlantic's hires have been women, and nearly half have been non-white. In 2024, the magazine bragged that in the previous year, 3/4 of the writers it hired were women, and 69% were BIPOCs. Since 2020, only 7.7% of LA Times interns have been white men. In 2021, 78% of the new hires at NPR were non-white. Of the 220 fellows the New York Times recruited since 2018, only 10% were white men. Universities are the same. White men line up for teaching jobs, but are elbowed aside at every stage. Hiring committees talk openly about it. Of all the tenure-track assistant professors Yale has hired since 2018, only 14.6% have been white American men. In the humanities, just 7.9%. Europeans sometimes get a pass, and it's a great leg up for a white to be homosexual or to have a non-white partner. Since 2022, Brown has hired 45 tenure-track professors in the humanities and social sciences. Just 3 were white American men. Mr. Savage's article is stuffed with numbers like this, and it's the same everywhere. Corporate jobs, book publishing, literary awards, young artists' showcases at museums, and of course, the MacArthur Genius Grants. In 2023, just for fun, I calculated that a black woman was 15 times more likely than a white man to be a genius. Mr. Savage doesn't even mention Joe Biden's rabid DEI push that ordered every part of the government to come up with an equity action plan, which loaded the dice against white men. The plans all had to be approved by Shalonda Young, who was running the Office of Management and Budget. Mr. Savage is Jewish, but he doesn't count how many of the rare white men who managed to be hired are Jewish. To go back to the Atlantic, the answer is clearly a lot. If you find a name like Fallows or Murphy, he's an older guy who got in before the vice closed quite so viciously. Young wasps, the kind of men who founded and built the country, good luck finding any of them. You can imagine the man-bun white males who, as Mr. Savage notes, probably had to mouth anti-white allyship to get their jobs. He quotes a journalist. "I always thought I was an effeminate nerd growing up, but my way of expressing myself now puts me on the most masculine end of men in media." Clone this wimp a million times, mix in swarms of feminists, non-whites, and homosexuals, and now you have the people who write the news, teach your children, publish books, make movies and TV, and crank out what passes for culture. How could advertising not be full of happy blonde women having children with black men? Even aside from the racial angle, hiring all these women is insane. They don't want to marry the men left on the shelf. And when they eventually settle for a podcaster or Bitcoin trader, they may be too old to have children. What could be sadder than this photo of 3 beers and a coloring book on a table in a bar? St. Paul Kate writes, "Life as a childless woman in my 30s, living in downtown St. Paul, truly unbearable. Please, someone rescue me from this utter misery." It doesn't help that she flies the homo flag, promotes feminism, Democratic Socialists of America, and is an anti-racist. America wrecked her life too. Jacob Savage could be right. Millennial white men may have faced the nastiest job market since the Depression. They were eager young liberals, determined not to be racists like their fathers, thinking they were on the right side of history. This was going to be the brave, new, multiracial meritocracy, and it shoved them straight to the back of the bus. But they won't stand up for themselves. Every one of Mr. Savage's sources is anonymous. Mr. Savage himself is all dreary resignation, not even any surprise, much less fury that a country founded and built by white men has been so viciously perverted. And once an institution is drenched in estrogen and melanin, and the white men who manage to get in are effeminate nerds, what's the chance of going back? At Yale, 2.3% of the faculty are Republicans. How can Yale possibly hire anyone who thinks straight about anything? Earlier this year, a group of Harvard students invited me to give a private talk. They told me about the constant, sickening, even gloating anti-white man atmosphere at Harvard. I asked if they had even the slightest affection for the oldest, most prestigious university in the country. Well, they weren't effeminate nerds. No was the answer. Burn it down. We're not going to get a meritocracy. Whatever we get will be multiracial, which means a slow death. It used to be a pretty good country, but my generation and the one before drove it right onto the rocks. Gibbering about reform means going down with a ship. We need to start over, whatever that means and whatever it takes. Maybe Mr. Savage will live up to his name and start fighting.
Okay, yeah. So that was a great breakdown of that article, and I love, again, just in general, that Vice President shared this, and these are truths that need to be talked about. There has been a push, again, a major push against white people for a long time, and it's about time people are finally getting to push back. So here I want to show, this is a collection of article headlines that I've had for quite some time. And we're going to go through them and just show the absolute insanity of what has been going on. How racist your air is. If you're white, you're probably breathing cleaner air. That's definitely not a racist article. Fox. Black Americans don't sleep as well as white Americans. Oh, that racist sleep. How could they ever do it? Washington State University. Understanding the unbearable whiteness of farming. Oh, you whiteys are so unbearable with the way you make food for us. Yeah. Let's ask Rhodesia about that one. Professor claims farmers markets cultivate racism. Habits of white people are normalized. You notice there's always a lot of professors, and like that study was saying, things like with Harvard and all this anti-white shit that's going on in all these places. This is why they call them brainwash. They're brainwashing factories at this point. This is what people like don't like college and are like, you don't like upper education? I'm like, dude, I want everyone to get as educated as humanly possible, but I don't want them turned into commie racists. Call me old fashioned. You don't want your kid that you raised, or at least tried to in this crazy world, raised till they were 18, to send them off to go learn how to hate your parents and your country world. Next, by Business Insider. White men are the future of beer, and that's terrible news for the struggling industry. Oh, terrible white people. Because stupid white men in there, shuffles deck, draws card, reviews. Mindy Kaling, white male critics are being unfair to Ocean's 8. I didn't even know there was an Ocean's 8, but I imagine it probably sucks. Although I do think Mindy is somewhat funny. Just the nice white people chapter in I'm Still Here is worth the price of the book, y'all. When you believe niceness disapproves the presence of racism, it's easy to start believing bigotry is rare, and that the label racist should be applied only to mean-spirited, intentional acts of discrimination. The problem with this framework, besides being a gross misunderstanding of how racism operates in systems and structures enabled by nice people, is that it obligates me to be nice in return rather than truthful. So being nice, if you're white, is racist. Don't be nice, but don't be mean. But don't farm. Don't breathe air. Don't get lots of sleep. And don't give bad reviews to bad movies. Think I got it so far? Oh, let's add. Oh, PETA. Cow's milk has long been a symbol used by white supremacists. One more reason to ditch dairy. Guys, you do not want to be a white supremacist. You will only drink the spit from PETA operatives' mouths. Damn white people in there. Prom. The racist history of prom. Oh, how racist is it to have a nice dance at the end of a good high school year? Yeah, you guys should be out joining gangs and dealing drugs in high school. That's what you should be doing. Just look at that's what the music industry in Hollywood. Yeah, that's what they push is cool now on children. So that's what you should be doing. Oh, this is a good one. By India Samarajiva. The unbearable whiteness of tourism. Tourism is colonialism with tips. The world of a brown tourist. By accident of birth, I have both these passports. They lead to two different worlds. Oh my God. Don't you ever go on vacation, you unbearable white person. Yeah, okay. Here's the history, the racist history of prom. Vice News. Vice is there a worse dumpster fire than Vice? Wall Street bets in GameStop. Reddit's lingering white supremacy problem. Reddit's white supremacy problem. Reddit is the progenitor of everything liberal and toxic on planet Earth. But apparently, I don't know, white people made some money on it, I guess. So they're obviously white supremacy. I don't think any of us can wash our legs in the shower without thinking about white people anymore. Once again, white supremacy has infested our homes and our minds. What? I don't even know what to say about that one. The racist language of space exploration. The language of colonialism is infected outer space thanks to dominance by rich white businessmen and politicians. We as Martians, yo. Don't talk those big fancy space words. Fucking racist. The hidden bigotry of crosswords. Oh, the Atlantic. Remember we was talking about the Atlantic staff? Gee, I wonder who wrote this one. Nathan Last. The popular puzzles are largely written and edited by older white men who dictate what makes it into the grid and what is kept out. You fucking pieces of shit. Dare you. White men must be stopped. The very future of mankind depends on it. Okay, Salon, I stand corrected. Salon is probably slightly worse than Vice, although they definitely spoon each other at night. Here's from AP. NAACP links earthquake signs in Oregon to white supremacy. Holy shit. Wow. Hallmark movies are fascist propaganda. Forget Triumph of the Will. The most insidious authoritarian propaganda comes in the form of schmaltz. The fuck is a schmaltz? This happy, fun stories, Hallmark movies, right? They're symbolic of like, hey, I love you. Oh my God, something happened where we can't get together, but now we can get together and have a happy ending. They're fascist propaganda. Here's Dr. Kimya Neuro Dennis. This week, I have 9 training presentations for school assistant principals and school principals. My training presentations include a request that most books used in schools be burned. Stop using white history, white mathematics, and white science as the foundation. Yeah, I can't believe that the inner city schools keep failing. Yale environment. How green groups became so white and what to do about it. If environmental organizations want to become racially diverse, sociologist Dorcetta Taylor, they need to change the way they perceive people of color. In an E360 interview, he talks about how the conservation movement must transform itself to become more inclusive and effective. If you want to be green, don't be white. How progressives undermine school integration. A robust body of research shows the benefits of integration. Why then is it so hard to achieve? I can't imagine. Is cold weather racist? We need these questions answered. Yeah, here's this was Instagram sticker. Mute white people. Someone in Instagram, I'll fucking approve that. BuzzFeed. 37 things white people need to stop ruining in 2018. How many things did you ruin in 2018? Aisha Harris thinks Santa Claus should not be a white man anymore. Yes, diversity is about getting rid of white people. And that's a good thing by exactly who you think it's by. Hello, my fellow whites. BuzzFeed again, 33 things that almost all white people are guilty of doing. Like saying please and thank you and being cordial members of society. Why we don't talk about race and why don't we talk about race in fairy tales? Characters in fairy tales are white, not by chance, but by design. Kimberly J. Loud writes in a new book. Yeah, because it's a fairy tale. Having a white nuclear family promotes white supremacy, says New York professor. Shocker. Report says, again, written by this retard looking thing, exactly who you'd expect. Oh, this is a good one. Okay, this is from the root. Patriotism is only for white people. Well, yeah, well, they teach everyone else to simultaneously hate America, but also to run here from every corner of the earth, be let in and just give free benefits. So the American flag, drenched in the blood of American Indians and enslaved Africans, has been romanticized as a symbol of guardianship for all citizens of the nation. Let me tell you something. Since the beginning of time, groups of people have been warring against other groups of people, and then with the winners taking that land. And almost exclusively throughout history, the victors have wiped out and displaced that other group of people, okay? To the point where there's billions probably of societies no one's ever even heard of. The American Indians were given their own pieces of land where they didn't have to pay taxes, and now there are more American Indians alive than there were when we went into the Americas. Okay, it was the worst genocide ever because they totally failed. If they were trying to genocide them, which they weren't, they came over and they found the tribes who definitely would war with each other and take land from each other all the time. And then they became the bigger fish and took the land from them. That's what happens. It was completely undeveloped land, which is why when people talk about the immigrants coming, they're like, this was built on immigrants. Why don't we like these immigrants? Well, it's like, first of all, we like the legal ones. Yeah, come on over. You want to go through a legal vetting process and then become a part of society and learn about America? Fuck yeah, dude. Do it. Exactly like how my ancestors do it. We don't like the illegal ones because they are just coming in and exploiting our system. And stop comparing them to our immigrant ancestors who came over to an undeveloped land and developed it into a beautiful country and were useful parts of society, when those illegal immigrants are just sneaking over the border and then sucking up our benefits. It's a huge difference. Look at this. The 8 white identities. White privilege, white voyeurism, white supremacists, white benefit, white critical, white traitor. I need to get a better version of that. School tells white parents to become white traitors and advocate for white abolition. A state school in New York has allegedly urged the parents of white students to become white traitors and advocate for white abolition. The school systems are destroyed, man. It is crazy. So I love what Trump is doing with the Department of Education right now. And it's a huge push to give it back to the states. They've already cut a whole bunch of the departments on the federal level, and it could start healing what has been going on. Oh yeah. Okay, that is the end of my slideshow here, and that's what we're up against. Or we're up against a media machine that has been anti-white for decades at this point. And again, it was slowly start seeding in once the Democrats shifted their scam from terrorizing black people. Then they were like, no, we're your friends now. Look, we'll start terrorizing these other people. It's like, you're the ones doing the terrorizing. And then they just started terrorizing the white Republicans, who were the ones who freed the blacks and fought to free the black slaves. I mean, Abraham Lincoln was a Republican. Republicans fought for civil rights. The first, however many black congressmen, I did a whole documentary on it here a while back. We're all Republican. Martin Luther King Jr. was Republican. It was all Republican. And somehow the Democrats have totally flipped that. And it's wild. And then in the process, they've also just destroyed many of the inner city black communities. So it's nuts. Speaking of different little mini docs and work and breakdowns I have, I will be in the coming weeks, I will start running just streams of all my videos that I've done over the years. I'll just let them run all night and then just kind of make it a sort of a live feel overnights. And I'll still be doing regular live streams too. So I urge you guys to check this page often. I urge you to go follow me on Rumble right now. And we're going to be doing this more and more and more. And it's just a beautiful thing going on over here. And again, yeah, so I'm putting them together now. And again, I'll just have them. So then at night, anytime you can come at night, anytime, and just catch different either breakdowns and mixed in between or dig videos versus even some videos that I was making of the things during the day. And some of them have been cool time capsules, actually going through them. It's actually been I've been going through the first Trump administration ones. And it's been a good reminder on a lot of the things that he did, a lot of the real time things, some of the lower things that don't make the general lists. And it's been a help to me to kind of relive those days and a lot of the wins of those days, because again, it gets swept under the rug as time goes by. And they're all, a lot of them, those stuff that he was doing there, and just the generalizations of, again, what was going on with things like, say, the Q drops, and also us like doing digs on different things and us being told to do digs. And I was continuously doing deep dives, kind of like, the way I made Codex 9/11 and other things before that it's going to be just a mix of that. So it's going to be cool breakdowns of that. You'll get reminders of a lot of the stuff that was going on in the first term, for good and bad, that is good ammo moving forward, plus different deep dives, plus all types of stuff. So I'll just be running them on overnights. That'll be starting in a couple weeks as again, just a cool way to start getting some of my old material back on there, and old into new, just all different types of things. So it'll be a cool place where you could just hang out and watch some documentaries and breakdowns at times. And that'll be something, again, that I'll be doing soon. And it should be a lot of fun. And then again, I will be doing this a lot more often as time goes on, just a place to kind of hang out, shoot the shit, and go over the current events of what's going on right now. As far as, some dives and stuff, like we were talking about the Bill of Rights, recap of anyone who just joined us. Trump declared a couple days ago that December 15th will be Bill of Rights Day. And, he was just talking about how basically making us think about this. One of the most important documents ever in our Constitution, and the Bill of Rights is one of the most important parts of the Constitution, in my opinion. I think everyone should have the Constitution by them. And this is a cool little proclamation here. So he says, by virtue of the power invested in me by Congress and the laws of the United States, do hereby proclaim December 15th, 2025 as Bill of Rights Day. I call upon the people of the United States, especially teachers, educators, and school administrators, to mark this observance with appropriate ceremonies and activities. So, yeah, that was pretty cool. So with that, we took a look at the Bill of Rights. Its main author is James Madison, the fourth president of the United States. Started looking at some of, how much he was involved in the Constitution, and also looked at Federalist Paper 10, read about half of that. And that was one of the Federalist Papers written by him. And these were the things that were led up to the Bill of Rights and the making of our government. So very important stuff. So I love doing dives. So I also love talking about current things. And we're going to be doing that a lot on here. It should be fun. So definitely follow my rumble.com/BradCGZ. You can find me anywhere, Brad CGZ, on almost every platform. And we will go through it. And then again, also, like I said, I'll also try and set this up. I'm going to set it up so where we can have just kind of a constant feed of a lot of my breakdowns and digs and documentaries and whatever, and memes and whatever you could think of from throughout the years, constantly playing here. So you could always have a place when you're bored to hang out and just click something at random and enjoy, and hopefully learn something maybe you didn't know before, and get some ammunition for when you're having those really fun political discussions with your friends and family and or co-workers, but which it's always good to be the informed one, because you don't want to be these freaking knuckleheads right here. As we showed in the beginning of the show, our youth is cooked, especially. So yeah, these two were definitely, I had no clue. Just, I don't like ice. Why don't you like ice? Because I don't like ice and they shouldn't be here. And it just goes to show it's a very symptomatic of the times we live in, where no one knows why they like anything or why they don't like anything. They were just told by the TV box not to like it, and basically pressured by their friends not to like it. So that's pretty much it at this point. I do want to say a shout out while we're winding down here. I do want to remind you guys that you can check out Soft Disclosure. Again, there is a link in the box below, and I don't know how to get it off my face. There we go. Soft Disclosure. They have a whole bunch of different cool products. Definitely go check them out. The link is in the info box down here. And if you use promo code BRAD, BRAD, you will get 10% off your order. And supporting my sponsors does help support this channel and helps support me. There we go. I was like, no, I'll get it eventually. And also from our friends here, do have a few super chats. To start the show, Lukester says, Brad, love you, homie. Wish you and your family a very Merry Christmas. Yeah, dude, I wish you guys all a very Merry Christmas. We're getting psyched over here. I love Christmas. That was always my parents' favorite holiday, and they totally passed it on to me. And so Abby and I have been getting ready. If I was more prepared, I'd have a picture of our Christmas tree right now, but I don't. I will be able to. Maybe I'll get one for next time I go live. But it was cool. It was fun putting it together, and I think she's gonna like her gifts. So hopefully we'll see. And yeah, dude, I just love Christmas. I love giving gifts, and I love seeing the look on people's face when you nailed the gift that they wanted. That I like that more so than getting gifts. I mean, getting gifts is fun, but it's just like the desire to give. I don't know. It's so cool. I think a lot of people, I've heard a lot of people say that too. And the thing that they enjoy the most is seeing the look on someone's face when you got them a really good gift that they totally love. Lowpat67 says, I'll say it. 2026 will get exceptionally better. And I'm so grateful for Brad and Abby Keep going, everyone. We're all in this shit show together. Merry Christmas. So grateful to find you. This is Jesus, and maybe let's just say that's a pug for Buster. I don't know what that is, but yeah, amen. I feel so lucky to have found all of you guys, and just this wonderful patriotic community in general. And I love being a part of it. I love hanging out. I love getting to have a voice and commentate on a lot of this stuff, but also just to have a place where I can dig and just start the conversation on a lot of different things. It's really cool. I love digging. Fashion myself a digger above everything else. I never feel like I'm particularly smooth on live streams. Oh, Lopez says that was an alpaca. I freaking love it. Yeah, dude. Alpaca for the soft disclosure. By the way, this is a friend, Annie, who makes these, and she has an alpaca farm, and I heard it is quite cool. So definitely go there. Promo code BRAD, BRAD, at the link in the description, and go check out the products. They make good Christmas gifts for sure. And yep, you gotta love it. So yeah, appreciate you guys hanging out. And these are a little less formal. Like I said, I never feel like I'm particularly smooth live streaming. That's why I probably don't do it as much as I'd like. I like doing an explicit dig and specifically writing it out and cutting out all the BS and just getting fact. A lot of you guys like that about my videos. And of course, I'll always continually do videos like that, in and out. But it's also nice just to come here and shoot the shit with you guys. Shout out to my YouTube family over there. It's cool to be back. And again, just hanging out with you. And then obviously shout out to Rumble. I suggest everyone, whichever platform you're on, go follow me on the other. Again, Brad CGZ will get you to my channel on either one. And so this way we could all hang out all the time and have a good time. And yeah, and so I'll be doing this a lot more often. And then again, I will be I'm going to set up late night to just be a live stream of different breakdowns and reporting and random videos that I've done from throughout the years. And so a lot of them is funny. A lot of the older dig breakdown videos all became relevant over these last couple of years. So it just goes to show, man, that knowledge is power. And that's why I love, those are basically my notes. There's so many times where there's a topic we're going to talk to, like, I know I dig into this. I know I remember the bullet points, obviously, but some of the finer details, say if it's been 5 years or something, I'll go watch my documentary on it. And I'll be like, oh yeah, blah, 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 blah. Oh, that is cool. Like before, when I was saying the first however many African-American politicians were all Republicans, I know that I have a documentary on here where I have that specific number, their names, and the whole nine. And so I like re-going through them, and they're kind of like my notebooks. They're my virtual video notebooks. And yeah, so I'll set that up here too on my Rumble to just have a nice little feed. It probably won't be 24 hours, but maybe like a good 10-hour feed overnights. And who knows, maybe we'll snag some more viewers too. And you guys we'll get some more friends to come hang out, and the Where We're Going We Go All community. And so much love. I will definitely leave you out here, and we'll talk to you soon. I hope you guys, I'll possibly see you before Christmas, but if I don't, have a Merry Christmas. And I agree, Lopat67. I think 2026 is going to get better and better and better. And I have a pretty solid landing date of June, July. Well, I guess landing time period of June, July 2026, to where a lot of stuff is all coming together. And then we could start the ramp up to go absolutely nuts. That's typically what I've watched over the years. Of when someone gets into office, it does take about 1.5 years for the policies and stuff that they've put in line, mostly due to the NSG policies starting to have time to kick in, to where then you start to get the real fruits of your labor, or the non-fruits of your labor in Joe Biden's case. Like, a year and a half into his presidency in the summer of 2022 really freaking started to suck. But and the converse in Trump's first term, summer of 2018, is when it was already getting good, and then that's when it just took off to the races. So I think summer of 2026 is going to be nuts, especially, dude, the way they've been going at it. If you read the freaking EOs he signed in those first a couple weeks, we're still starting to see the fruits of a lot of those. So it's a beautiful thing, and it just keeps on rolling, and I'm freaking loving it. So Lopat says you two should put a greenhouse building video on YouTube. I can't imagine how much that beef barley soup from 8 years ago is making in views. I don't know what that means, but yeah, we did build a greenhouse, my wife and I, over just last I guess over the last year. It's been built now for months, but it was fun. We have a lot of video of it. So yeah, so maybe I'll stitch that all together in a video for you guys. But that being said, I will catch you on the flip side. Take care.